Happy Women's History Month, everyone, and welcome to our great event, Women Rising, Wealth and Independence Abroad. Before we begin, I just want to remind everyone that all Americans abroad can vote in the midterm elections and that this is a very important year. Please request your absentee ballots and at votefromabroad.org. It's really simple, takes about 5 minutes to do it. And let's vote in the primaries so we can for the people who will represent us the best and help us fight fascism. Also, ask for your ballot to be sent to you by email. Now I'm going to turn it over to Adrienne George, our chair of the Global Black Caucus. Adrienne?
Thank you, Angela. I'm so honored to introduce Lisa Mitchell. I'm proud that I can consider her a friend. I
Hmm.
met her over 15 years ago, maybe 20, in Stockholm. She was celebrating her birthday and had come from Paris to Sweden. So I think she knows a little bit about independence abroad. She has her MBA. She's a global executive, a consultant, an international personal finance educator. She's dedicated herself to helping people build financial confidence and independence while living abroad. That's her niche. And she has over 25 years of experience in general management, sales, and business development across the US, Europe, and Asia. She's held senior leadership roles within Fortune 500 global organizations in banking, financial services, and global education. I'm bragging now, but I love it. She has managed $1 million portfolio for an international digital banking branch
Thank you,
at
Adrian.
Wells Fargo, well, multi-million, and held senior roles at Citibank, giving her a deep understanding of how money, banking, and opportunity moves across borders. And she's one of us. She's lived and worked in China, Vietnam, the UK. That's when she was introduced to Democrats Abroad, by the way, in the UK.
Hmm.
So she's
That's right.
bringing us real world. Yeah, she said you all were really holding it down over there, so be proud. So she's
That's
bringing
right.
us her real world insights on wealth building, global mobility, and thriving internationally. And she'll give you all this as well, but her business is called Living a Global Lifestyle. So make sure you check out her website and her social media. It's a global community platform that supports us expats, digital nomads, and global travelers with tools to live abundantly. She doesn't want us just to survive, she wants us to thrive. So I'm so lucky that bringing her blend of global expertise, cultural intelligence, and financial empowerment to us in honor of Women's History Month for the Global Black Caucus. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Adrian and Angela, thank you so much for inviting me. And Adrian, of course, thank you for that lovely introduction. I'm going to share my screen. I didn't realize we'd known each other that long when I kind of came to Sweden for my birthday, which is in December, people. Maybe you don't want to do that. But Adrian came to the hotel and she met my cousin and I, and we had a lovely time, and we've been friends ever since then. So let me share my screen. And today, well, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Thank you for allowing me to share International Women's History Month with you. When I lived in Shanghai, this was always a great holiday. Companies gave the day off. I taught executive students. We always did something really, really special. So I'm really, really glad to be doing it. Just a couple of caveats. I do a lot of speaking. Usually I'm a podcast host, I mean, not host, guest, or someone is interviewing me on YouTube. And I'm always deep in the research weeds, as I like to call them, because when I speak, I want to be able to give everyone the most updated information. As a result, I think I've come to hate slides just as much as everybody does. But I've prepared some slides, and what I'm going to do is I'm creating like a mini ebook for this group, because I know like one of the questions people asked was estate planning And if your partner dies, what documents should you have? And I will touch on that, of course. But I mean, I've got checklists up the wazoo, and I'm going to package it nicely, and then everyone will get it. I really want this to be my approach is as Adrian said, and we're going to do my disclaimer, is yes, I'm a banker and I have an MBA. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a tax advisor. Actually, I always advocate you see that you go out and get that type of help. I'm more of a financial educator. As Adrian said, I mean, I have been a perennial expat digital nomad. I also worked for Wells Fargo and Citibank. Right out of business school, I did my training at Citibank in the Global Management Associate Program and went right into the expat banking division. After that, I went on to Wells Fargo, where I ran their international banking business, which was really for expats, burgeoning digital nomads at that time, and global travelers, who needed to manage their finances. So I do have a lot of experience with that, and not only living it, I've got war stories I can tell people. But my goal is always, as a financial educator, to teach people what I know and what I've learned and help. I'm not here to give you, it would be impossible to give, I see where people are from, to give an answer for every single person. We're all living in foreign countries and we've got our own financial, right? Personal finance situation, so that would even be impossible. And as I was doing my research, I'm starting to hear a lot of these other financial advisors, people kind of in the expat finance space, they're saying the same thing. And that is rightly so. It's really, really hard in this space to give kind of blanket, I mean, to give very specific advice. You have to really always give broad strokes. And that's what I always try to do. And then, like I said, I'm going to speak for maybe 20, 25 minutes. I'm from New York, so I can speak very quickly. Then I will, of course, take questions, and then I will follow up with the ebook. And then, if there are any also things you want me to include in the ebook you'd like to see, happy to try to do that as well. So I always like to set the tone and start um, with a quote. Um, so we can just kind of set the tone. Financial well-being is a global language. Speak it fluently, live it fully, and share its benefits wherever you roam. I think moving abroad, we all have different experiences, but there's always one common denominator, right? And that's money. We will always have to manage our finances, right? Our new host country, our home country, and then if we have financial obligations, if we have kids, if we're supporting a relative, that could be another country, right? So again, the goal is to give you some information, deliver it to you, and help you come to your own conclusions, or really what answers, because people, you don't know what you don't know. I always hear that when I speak, and I agree with that. You don't know what you don't know. So I'm trying to help you. Maybe some things maybe some things you don't know, maybe somewhere I can learn. I'm always looking to learn from my clients and the people that I speak with. So I found these really cool statistics about money. And I'm always too wanting to find out, thank God for places like Internations, because like before the whole digital nomads, it really, really grew. There really wasn't a lot of research as well about people like us who live a global lifestyle. So I was shocked actually last night to know that women make up about 59% of US expats. And now they're saying there's about what 55.5 million US expats, so it's approximately 3.2 million women who live abroad. That came from Internations. I don't know how many people are part of Internations, a global organization. I actually first joined Internations, attended one of their social events when I lived in London the second time. They're great. They're all around the world. It reminded me of my business school Thunderbird, which we try to get together in every city in the world every Tuesday. So Internations is kind of the same thing in that they have events all over. But what they also had started to do, and I don't know how long this survey is, they do a very, very good survey every year about people like us, expats, just housing, safety, finances, everything. It's really very, very good. I was also happy to hear some of these statistics as we're talking about women's financial independence, how much money women control, 60 trillion in global assets. Really, really excited to hear that 64% of women say they have a financial plan to reach their goals. That's important. You need a plan, and I'll speak about that later. And then, of course, we're hearing about how there's going to be this great $1 trillion wealth transfer, and it was nice to see that women are going to be part of that, are really going to benefit from that. And of course, and I love this. I'm hoping, well, not hoping because hope is not a plan. 406 women appeared on Forbes World's Billionaires list. So let's keep moving towards that and have more female billionaires. Circle of life. This is something that I came up with. I was doing, I can't even remember who had asked me to speak, and we were talking about how the fact that I had been an expat in my 20s. I first went to work in London on the equivalent of their Wall Street when I was 21. And then Vietnam, I think I was in my late 30s. I spent some time there. And then the second time I went to work and live in the UK, I was midlife. And then when I went to live in China for 5 years, um, I was midlife, and obviously, oh, just turned 60 last year. Um, Retirement and beyond, I will spend, if not all my time, but some of my time abroad. So that's really, for a lot of us expats, I'm sure we have a similar story. And I termed it the circle of life. Where are you? Where are your finances? Because trying to compare people who are in their 20s or like these digital nomads, Adrian and Angela were teasing me earlier about, we were talking about TikTok, and you see all these videos, and I say it still burns me when people give these videos. And I know that the information is wrong and how you can move abroad too. And they're in their 30s, their priorities are different, right? Or as a friend of mine reminded me, I was doing her podcast, and she was saying, women who may be older, they have hopefully a lot more assets and a lot more skin in the game. So it's different. They're just not going to kind of maybe pick up and just live somewhere because they hate the US. There are a lot more things riding on it. So I think it's important to kind of look at the circle of life. Where are you and where are your finances? Right? Because for every different age, it's a different financial situation. The things I did and what I earned in my 20s, I didn't earn in my 30s or my 40s, or, what I'm hoping to accomplish financially in my 60s. So I think you really kind of need to pay attention to that. So let's get to the meat a little bit. What are your financial goals? Okay, how many people can answer? If I was in the room with you and sitting down, what are your financial goals? Now, moving abroad, sometimes it can be hard to know, and obviously, the longer you live abroad, it's probably going to change. You're going to have family events. You might have to repatriate for a while. You might have to go to another country. But really, do you have in mind? And I tell this, this is such a treat. I'm speaking to people who are already living abroad. Often I speak to newbies or people who want to go, and they kind of have sometimes stars in their eyes, especially about finances, right? So, do you have we're talking about wealth. Do you have a financial wealth plan? When I tell people about going abroad and their finances, I always say, well, what's your financial plan? Sadly, even after I've been doing this since business school 30 years, it still falls at the bottom. And it's like, it doesn't matter if you're going on a traditional corporate global assignment, which those still do exist, um, or if you're just going to work on your own, you still need some type of financial plan. You need a financial blueprint. You need to go beyond budget. But I find that people don't even have a budget. So I'm really big on what's your financial strategy? Okay, I'm moving to China. My financial strategy is, well, my financial strategy was to get away from banking and get away from the crazy people in banking, get away from, although I loved international personal banking and managing it, it became a compliance nightmare. Um, Live in a country that was cheaper, you know, and figure out my next step, teach, develop some new skills. Did I do all those things? Yes, but some other things happened during the way that did impact my finances, and we'll talk about that. Okay. So understanding what your financial goals are, where you are, having a plan is very important. And Some people won't have it when they're leaving. But I would say once you settle down, sometimes it takes, most of the time I've seen some stats, 90 days for people to actually, oh, like me, I swear, 90, and I've been to Shanghai a bunch of times. I took me 90 days to kind of figure out how to get to work and not get to work. And I'm from New York City with mass transit and, get to my clients and things like that. Then you can start to maybe think about your goals. Now, I also created I'm going to put this in your workbook. I created a financial quiz, which I don't think folks like you need because you've been living abroad, but kind of like a self-assessment. And I'm just going to throw out a few questions and you can ponder it. I regularly review my financial plan to adjust for changes in my expat lifestyle. I have a clear strategy for building and preserving wealth while living abroad. I understand the retirement and pension options available to me as an expat. I am confident in handling unexpected financial challenges while abroad. And the final one, I maintain an adequate balance between my home and host country financial activities. And it's kind of on a 1 to 5 scale, um, one being strongly disagree. Actually, I might change this, five being strongly agree. This is just kind of something, an assessment for you to think about, some questions for you to think about, to get you started, financial independence, building wealth, you know, how you answer those questions. Okay. My other favorite, okay, not so favorite question that I ask people, which often, again, they cannot answer. What are your sources of income? Oh, I want to move abroad or I'm living abroad. And if we're living abroad, these, they will probably change. Maybe we receive an inheritance from overseas, or maybe while we're living abroad, we develop a business. But I find that a lot of people they can't answer this question. Even some of my folks that I have here, family members, I was given this presentation one day, and my cousin was with me, and she said, "Oh, that's an interesting question." She doesn't know. She was didn't know what her sources of income were. She couldn't answer that question. And when I pressed her, I said, "Well, what are what are some of the things you're invested in?" "Oh, I don't know. I really don't have a handle on it." And people really need to think about this and think about how they're, what they're, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. My other one really is, well, let me go back to sources of income because I want to be able to give people some examples. Um, Pension, social security, earned income like salary, real estate, rental income, royalty income, profit from a business, dividend income, and then of course, we have now the digital assets, crypto, and of course, Adrian, my favorite we talked about, although not a source of income, more like an asset, gold, and now of course I would add to that silver. What are your sources of income? Can you name them? Do you need to increase them as you're going along on your expat journey? You might be moving from country to country. Um, you know what does that look like? I see a lot of people still can't answer it. Also, I would have to ask people, and this comes up a lot with the sources of income. Oh, I have side hustles. I'm beginning to hate that word. I don't think when I talk to a banker or somebody who's really, really wealthy, and they may have partnerships and they don't call them side hustles. They call them other sources of income, other revenue generating activities. And I think that that's what we should do. That's what we should be calling them. And also for women and building your wealth. How many people on here? Okay, this is for people who maybe, you work, for lack of a better word, a 9 to 5. How many people have another business, an online business, or getting royalties from KDP or something like that? I would say if there's one thing you leave with today, if you can, you really need to think about it. And if you haven't started a business by now, I would say kind of why not? Why not? Now, I know in some countries, pensions are stronger, social services, social security is stronger. But I don't think having multiple sources of income could ever really be a bad thing. Just my take on it. Okay. Know your numbers. What do we mean by this? Just like my doctor is always telling me, know my numbers, know your blood pressure, know my weight. I always tell people, know your numbers. What's one of the most important numbers that a lot of people moving from country to country or about to live overseas, and this also came from hearing people ask other expats, well, how much do I need to move abroad? Well, I don't know. That question is different for Adrian. That question is different for Angela, right? I'd hear weird things like, "Oh, you need at least 10,000." What if my monthly expenses are $10,000? What if I've added up my remaining, and it's a simple formula, remaining expenses I'll have in the US, then my expenses I think I'll have in, let's say I'm going to Stockholm, I'm going to Sweden, and then I'm going to add a certain amount for a slush fund. Let's say that's $10,000. That's only going to last me, if I only take $10,000 from the US to that country, that's only going to last me 1 month. So for everyone, that's different, but it's imperative. Even, okay, everyone on here is most, I'm assuming, is an expat. This is the time to do an audit, right? A financial audit. Or people have heard me talk about a financial stress test, right? Um, if I lose my one source of income, what are my finances going to look like? If the economy goes kaput based on what's happening now, how is that going to impact me? Okay, what are all my sources of income? What are all my expenses? And of course, accounting for unexpected things like medical. Um, what does that really look like? But I find people don't, if I say, what's your number you need to hit every month? What? I don't know, maybe 2000. Okay, maybe not. So what happens if you don't make $2,000? Let's say you move overseas, and we all have moved overseas. I've worked for local companies. There's always some hassle with payroll. I swear half of my I was not on a traditional expat salary. I was on local salary. My colleagues and I, we were all living off of our salaries for the first 3 months until things started to get rolling. So I learned then, number one, it's important that you know your number. I had a vague idea of what my expenses would be, but to really, really plan for that in case something goes wrong. Or this is my, Adrian, you may have heard me speak about this. Other people have heard me speak about this. The thing I don't like about working overseas really is the getting paid monthly. That was a real adjustment for me and for other people that I knew. So, that can change the dynamic of what your financial, picture looks like. So that's something that you really, really need to account for. What's your number? What's your monthly number? Do you have that saved? Do you have that invested? And of course, add a slush fund to that. Are you saving enough for retirement? What's the number you want for retirement, or you think that you can accomplish, you think you're going to need? What's your number or your percentage that you want for savings? um, so that's really, really important. I really, really stress this to people, and that they need to do some kind of a stress test. And if you're already overseas, you need to do some kind of audit, whether it's maybe some people are doing it annually. I think you need to do it more often, quarterly. And at the very least, like in the US, I used to sit down once a week every Sunday, and I would look at my finances. And I got into the habit of doing that in China to take advantage of, well, I would usually do it Sunday or Monday, to take advantage of the time difference. But that's something you should do. Everyone should be doing that. The other thing, the other number to keep a watchful eye on, oops, I seem to have skipped something. Okay, that's okay. That's all right. I'm gonna put it right here. The other important number is credit, right? If you're going to be tied, unfortunately, I'm also a credit trained banker. If you're going to be tied to the US, right? Usually you're tied to your US credit history, credit score. And we know in the US, credit makes the world go round. We still really don't have a global credit score. Sure, we're sharing credit histories across borders. That's becoming more easier and more common. Other countries, they have a credit score. Um, but usually US credit histories and US credit scores don't transfer. We do have companies like Nova Credit, which I think has done a really good job, but that's still credit bureau to credit bureau, and they've come out with some products. Mostly it seems for foreign nationals, but if you're going to be a US citizen, you still need to think about your US credit score. You never know when you're going to have to use your US credit score. This has happened to me as well, living in a foreign country. I had an emergency, or I had an emergency expenditure. I had a good credit score. I paid on time, and I was able to have my US credits, excuse me, I was able to have my credit limit increased, right? Or people who want to buy property abroad, and local financing might be a problem. You could maybe use your US credit score to get a home equity loan to buy a property. So it's important that you keep up with that. It's important, of course, for repatriation. Lots of people come back home and they realize that they have a thin file, or no, which is what we call, you're not kind of scorable. Not that you have, I hate that word. I hate the word bad credit. I use sometimes subprime credit, but they have a thin file. It's like they haven't existed for the last couple of years that they were living abroad, and that's really, really, it's really, really important. My other thing, I always have the caveat for people, although US expats, it's hard when you are living abroad. The longer you live abroad, the longer you become usually engrossed in their local financial system. So a lot of countries have a version of a credit score, of a credit history. But I always try and tell people, look before you leap if you're going to engage in local credit, because it's not the same. Good, bad, or indifferent, the United States has a pretty um, long credit. What has it been like since the 50s or the 60s? Credit bureaus came about, and we also have a lot of laws that protect people. I know it doesn't seem like it all the time in terms of credit. What happens? I remember I was in the hospital in China and I couldn't pay my financial obligations. I had to send. What if I had a credit card and I couldn't pay it for 30 days? What happens there? Right? Or 60 days, right? Despite what most of us think, you can't always do everything with a financial app or online. So those are just some things to think about with credit. Along with credit, you might think about doing a credit freeze, credit alerts, and have credit monitoring, because identity theft does happen while we're away on our expat lives in other countries. Identity theft is still really a huge thing, and also your child's identity. That for a while became a really, really, I haven't heard about it that much, but it's something to think about, especially, right? Maybe you've been living abroad with your children and they want to go to college in the US. So many stories, people find out somebody's been using their credit history while they've been living abroad. You don't want to do that. Okay. All right. This other one, I wasn't going to put this in here, but it's still, I think, really relevant. Even though we live, most of us have been, if you're expats for a long time, you're used to using the euro, you're used to using different currencies. For newbies who are just going over, it is a shock because the US dollar is the reserve currency of the world. Some people, I meet lots of people or hear lots of people talk, they're like, I don't even know where to buy foreign currency. How am I going to deal with that? Um, and also, I wanted to put this in again. This relates to doing a stress test. I looked at some stats. I knew the US dollar was weakening. It was weak. I didn't know it had depreciated against the euro last year, like between 10 and 13%. And for the Thai baht, it was between 4 and 6%. Makes sense. That's why I heard a lot of people in Portugal and a lot of people in Thailand complaining last year. Oh my God, it's not as cheap as I thought it would be. Oh my God, the exchange rates are going crazy. Exchange rate volatility will always matter for people who live a global lifestyle, for expats. And I don't really see this in expats a lot, but I want to mention it. Be mindful of geo arbitrage, right? Which is what most digital nomads do, right? They're earning in US dollar or euro, stronger currencies, and they move to a country um, where their dollar can go a little bit further. And look what happened Thailand is a big one, and people were complaining. Look what happened, 4 to 6%. So that's the money you losing on your purchasing power if you're getting paid in US dollar. So it's something to think about. It's always something to be mindful about. I get beat up a lot. People are like, oh, Lisa, geo arbitrage is great. Geo arbitrage is great, but you have to have a strategy around it. It has to be part of your financial plan. You can't just go, oh, I'm moving to Thailand because it's cheaper. What happens when it doesn't become cheap? Oh, then I'm moving to Malaysia because it's cheaper. And then I'm moving to Vietnam. And these countries have already said, like Thailand said, Thailand's on my radar because I thought for retirement. They already said, first of all, there's a lot of wealth in Thailand that people don't really often pay attention. Thailand said before the pandemic, and Vietnam, I believe as well. I've been going to Vietnam since the 90s. They don't want to be the backpacker and the cheap haven in Southeast Asia. They're trying to grow their economies and grow their currencies as well. Okay. So it's just something to think about. My other thing I always want to mention, don't skimp on insurance. I still hear a lot of people saying no to this. No, I'm not buying insurance. But theoretically, yes, if we're expats and we're going to be living and working in these countries, we'll eventually be part of the local insurance plan, the local insurance system. Or yes, it might be cheaper and more affordable. But I always want to mention it, especially now, a lot of countries are requiring insurance for certain visas. I think the thing I wanted to mention here with the don't skimping on insurance, just like insurance in the US, it may not cover everything. Insurance globally is going up, right? So again, I have here it's a non-negotiable because people still go, oh, I don't need it. I don't want to pay for it. And don't forget to include evacuation and repatriation of remains. I know people don't love to talk about it, but look what just is happening. And people, if you have evacuation insurance, don't rely on your company, even if it's a large multinational company. Make sure that you know the ins and outs of the insurance they're providing. I know tons of expats, they have their insurance from their company and they still buy another rider, especially if they have kids, more insurance. I don't know. I feel like insurance is one of those things you can't have enough of. Local insurance plans, although they may seem attractive because of the price, they may be limited, right? The insurance I had when I worked in China locally, I found out it only covered local hospitals and services. It wasn't going to pay for me to go to the top global hospital that I wanted to go to where I ended up, because I had something serious happen. And also sometimes those companies, I knew lots of my colleagues, they went to the hospital, they wouldn't reimburse them. Maybe it's not something that in that country that companies traditionally do. I found that was the problem. Went back to them and said, well, why didn't they reimburse you? You gave the receipt. Well, and then you go back to the monthly, right? Just like they're paying salaries monthly, they're paying reimbursements monthly. Travel insurance, I used to get a lot of pushback from people, even people who are longtime expats. Oh, I'll buy travel insurance. I mean, travel insurance, they offer medical, they can offer emergency medical in the short term. They can help you bridge the gap of 3 to 6 months. When I got very, very ill in China, I think I had been there barely 6 months. I didn't have travel insurance, but what I did have is I had insurance from the US. I was still on, oh my God, I can't think of the program. It's not Cigna. I can't think of the program where after you quit your job, you keep your insurance for 18 months. And that's what really helped me. And also, these days, I feel assess what insurance you really need. Global health plan, global life insurance, what I'm looking into, right? The life insurance plan you have, does it pay out in the is it going to pay out in this country you're in? And liability insurance, we've heard the story of the foreigner that was in Taiwan and they hit a older woman and they had to pay. Same thing. I think there was an incident on the Great Wall. Same thing. And as you guys may or may not know, these things happen. The police get involved. The government. You're not leaving until you usually pay something, or you can make some kind of pay arrangement. Okay. All right. Okay. I don't know why this kind of got a little bit. Give me 1 second. I don't know what happened. Okay. Spend time and money on financial expertise, taxes, investments, and retirement. I still see a lot of people who don't want to do this. They until they get in trouble. I am a big proponent of before you leave the United States, or even as let's say you're already in Sweden and you've decided to move to Thailand, continuously, again, we go back to the audit, we go back to the stress test, look at your taxes. Do I need to, maybe your situation has changed. Do I need to get somebody in here, or do I need to do a consultation with someone to look at my taxes, to just consult with me? Same thing for investments. And we know that investments, a lot of people move overseas and then they find out because they're a US expat that none of the investment houses will touch them, and they start scrambling, or they don't have a US address to use, or the investment firm finds out that they're moving abroad and they send them a very nice letter that says, we will liquidate your assets. So make sure that you're spending time. And I have resources up the wazoo. I don't necessarily refer, but I provide the resources, I provide the names. I'm sure everyone's heard of Schwab International. I'm sure everyone's heard of Interactive Brokers. I would just say make sure that they're licensed. That's a big one. Are they licensed? If they need to be licensed in the country you're in, are they licensed for sure in the United States? I mean, in a lot of the big expat enclaves, you find a lot of people, I hate to say it like this, they wet the fry machine before. And they come to whatever country and they're just really, looking for a job or doing sales, and they don't have any certifications. And they really, especially with US citizens, because reporting and PFIX and things that you've heard about, it's such an issue. And we are often low hanging fruit for the IRS, and the penalties can be very, very hard, very, very high, right? Everyone knows about FACTA. Everyone knows about FBAR, those reporting, right? If you have FBAR $10,000 and above, even if it's just one day in your bank accounts, FACTA, which is the reporting, now they want financial institutions. This has been going on since 2010. Also, kind of drove me out of the direct banking, working for a bank. Reportable to the IRS. I also just heard, as I was doing research for you guys, one of the advisors I was listening to, he said that there is no, and I don't know if this is true, no German bank that will open accounts for US expats. That's rough. That's very, very rough. That's hard. But if you are constantly looking at your financial plan and your financial strategy and you know about it and you're doing stress tests and audits, you can find a solution. You can try to find a solution. You don't want to, oh my God, I need a bank account. And then you realize you can't get one. That's when it gets hard. Same thing about retirement. I always say, you know, and I think most expats can kind of go along with this. You look up and 5 years have gone by that you're in a country when you only said you were going to be there two. And I see a lot of people who are moving overseas, a lot of digital nomads and things like that. They're trying to figure out what they're going to do for retirement. They go, "Oh, hey, I haven't thought about it. Maybe I can't hang out as a digital nomad, or maybe for a couple years, maybe I need to go back to the U.S." Right? So that's something to really, really think about. That could really sneak up on you, right? In a lot of countries, I went to China when I was like 45, and I remember people were like, "Oh my God, local! Oh my God, the retirement age for women here is 50." I'm like, 50? People in America at 50 are just having second and third careers, right? So it's something to think about. And if you're going to retire abroad, what does that really look like? Like I recently went to Denmark, not Denmark. I was in Amsterdam, and I was like, "Oh wow, this is someplace that's very cool." I had never been to the Netherlands. I was like, I could retire here. So I did a presentation on. I was giving a presentation. I mentioned this, and I was telling people, if you want to retire in a foreign country, you want to figure out what retirement looks like, not for expats, which is the thing we only hear about, but for locals. What are they retiring? What is a nursing home like? What happens if you get sick? What does that really look like? Okay. And this is another one that I put in here because of everything that really happened last week. And I've done a whole seminar on this. I'm just going to go over some highlights. Are you prepared for an emergency, financial, medical, or like we saw last week in the Middle East? Seemed to me like a lot of people forced repatriation. right? You're living here one day and everything is going well, and you're just, I saw a couple of people who kind of had it down pat. I know a lot of people, they have their act together. I'm not one of them. They can be gone in 48 hours. They have their finances, digital, paper, people in their home country, host country. They have everything set up. They can be gone. But in terms of, are you prepared? Do you have an emergency fund that you're constantly building and replenishing? Right? That would be part of your financial strategy. You have physical cash on hand, convertible currency, maybe a gold bar or two. You have access to crypto, digital assets. This will be something that you put in, like I always say, your to go bag, right? We hear about preppers in the US, but is that something you have? You have your offshore, and I hate this word because offshore really doesn't mean anything except outside of your home country. Do you have a multi currency bank account? Do you have a backup plan for exchanging and moving money, right? In some of these countries we saw last week, the internet is off, the internet is down. What are you going to do? You might have to go to a Western Union or something like that. Do you have multiple ATM, debit, credit cards from various networks, Visa, MasterCard? Do you have a plan for a healthcare emergency? Believe it or not, sometimes overseas that could wipe you out as well. I think when people think about medical emergency, they think, oh, I hurt my ankle. No, no, my medical emergency was a major organ and it was 5 figures. I know somebody who had something similar and it was 6 figures. It was money she was saving for a house. She had to use it. Okay. So I'm going to end because the rest of this I can put in the ebook because you guys asked me about estate planning. All right. So we know for estate planning, again, this is something that we should be thinking about before we move abroad, or again, in our audits, in our stress tests, right? Because it's going to look different for everybody in different countries, right? If you have a spouse, if you have a significant other, you're not married, if you have a family, if you're solo like me, what do I do? And the other thing, I can just read this, right? You have assets in multiple countries, jurisdiction differences, local inheritance laws are different, legal systems, accessing accounts across borders. Do you have your paperwork? Is your family in sync with that? So there's a lot to think about. And what I would add to this, which I didn't put in here, but elder care planning. A lot of us are in the sandwich generation. How are you managing that while you're living abroad? Last year, I did something about aging abroad. Someone had me on their podcast, but we also talked about not only us aging abroad, but if our family ages abroad, right? What are we going to do? Art magazine, everybody knows ARP, right? Association for Retired People. They interviewed me for an article on their website how people are using AI. I use AI. I have two elderly parents, and how I use artificial intelligence to manage that. I can't imagine if I were overseas right now, how I would imagine. I know it would be very, very difficult. Okay. That's also estate planning. Like I said, it's a talk you should have, a financial conversation to have with your partner. I apologize. I turned this off. I don't know why it's on. Um, you want to kind of take care of this because before it becomes a big problem. I do have an estate planning checklist which I'm going to put in the ebook, but some things you should have: a healthcare proxy for medical decisions, a medical directive. I did not put that in there. Okay, that's okay. Um, which is kind of a living will, what medical treatment you want or you don't want. A will or a trust. Remember, some trusts are not looked at favorably like we think in the US in foreign countries. Durable power of attorney, which is really a financial power of attorney. Guardianship designations. Of course, we need to be able to lay our hands on vital records, passports, marriage, partnership documentation, birth certificates, social security, national identity numbers, insurance policies, retirement accounts. You get what I'm trying to say. I would say, I mean, you should always have a digital copy. Maybe you have a binder, just something all in one place that everybody knows how to get to, I think is most important. I'm dealing with this myself. As I say, I have two elderly parents, and every day somebody just called me and said, "Oh, do you have the healthcare proxy?" I would say the other thing, having gotten sick in China, that I realized, what's the equivalent of some of these things on this checklist that I talked about in a foreign country? Like when I was in China and got sick, I was like, well, what happens if I don't wake up? What happens if I'm in a coma? What do you guys do? Do you do life support here? What if my family can't get to me? Not everybody has a passport. Or China, you needed a visa. So again, this is not something something fits for all. The other thing that I want to end with, it always used to be the big thing. Oh, well, I need two wills and do I need two plans or one for each country? I always used to say yes. Some advisors would say no. Now I see advisors saying yes. You need one for your home and your host country. Okay. And I'm just going to, like I said, I began with a quote. So I'm going to end with a quote. Embrace your global lifestyle with financial confidence. Every currency, every transaction, every investment is a step towards your dreams. And that's it. I know I went over time a little bit in speaking, but I'm happy to take any questions or any comments if anybody has some for me.
Okay, now I remember why I was on the Costco website looking at the gold bars.
Oh, yeah, right, right, right. We had that discussion many times. Yeah. Nobody believed me, right? Oh, Lisa, you spend too much time in Asia where everybody talks about gold. Everybody has a gold bar. What is gold? Is it 4,000 or 6,000 an ounce? So, and now advisors and everybody is talking about, oh, yeah, gold is a good idea. Oh, yeah, sure. But advisors will always say, oh, it has no intrinsic value. Don't do it.
Lisa, I'm going to ask you, I don't know if there are questions I'm going to hop in first,
Yeah.
because yes, I have invited you under different platforms to do this, and every single time you blow my mind. What if it, because I'm doing the audit, I'm thinking, do I have this? And I keep
Oh,
thinking
good.
every time I'm
Good.
better and better, right? Because I've
Right.
learned more and more and more. But I don't think, what is it that if I, for example, I've lived in Sweden for 10 years, I don't ever going to
Mm-hmm.
go back. This is a hypothetical. And I never thought
Right.
about anything that you said because,
Right.
I pay my taxes here. I'm going to get my thing. I file my taxes in the States. I do all that stuff. But what if I haven't got any individual savings, or I don't? One thing I think I'm smart about, I think this is really what I want to ask. Instinctively, when I moved abroad 20 years ago, I never got rid of my driver's license, credit
Mm-hmm.
cards, voting card, social security card. I kept all of that stuff because I never thought that, I don't know if it's because of being black, I'm not walking away from my American citizenship, right? They're gonna have
Right.
to pry that out of my cold dead hands, right? Harriet Tubman ain't gonna haunt me because I gave away my citizenship, right? The ghost of
Right.
Harriet Tubman. So I never thought about that. So what do people do that didn't? Like you said, you may move back and you got this thin file. What if they didn't keep their? How do you build that over? Can you do that from abroad?
Oh, I
You
think that would be
can.
hard to do from abroad. It depends, but you're right. You're almost like you're invisible. You right. You have a in the United States. Credit makes the world go round. My God, Jill Scott was right. You need credit for everything, right? And I usually say no. I've done research on that. You don't need my credit or my social security number for that. But that's something before you repatriate, you would really have to think about it. Now, a lot of people have given up their citizenship. Most of the people that I've seen give up their citizenship, they've given it up for tax reasons. Well, unless my last name is Kennedy or Trump, right? What if you give up your citizenship and the taxes the laws change tomorrow in expats' favor, right? And then a lot of these people, what I didn't know, and I found out through research, then you need a visa to come into the United. You might need a visa to come into the United States. I'm born in the U.S. I gave up my citizenship. Then I need to apply for a visa to come in. I don't know. I'm never a proponent of that, really. But you bring up a good question. If you've become invisible before you repatriate, I wouldn't leave, what I built in Sweden. I would start online, figuring out what it's going to take, right? You have to have somewhere to live. if you're going to go back into the workforce. It's another reason I tell people not to close their bank. Oh, I closed my US bank account, right? Remember the people that closed their US bank account and then the stimulus check came for pandemic. And they were all like, oh my God, I need to, what happened? No, I won it. And thankfully it was groups like this who really fought for US expats to get the stimulus check. And people were, oh, I don't have a US bank account. What am I going to do? My bank in Germany doesn't take paper checks. Really? So never, I'm a big proponent. I'm glad you're a good example of someone who's kept everything. Especially, I see a lot of people, they move the first year, then they come back, right? So they're stuck. Lots of people. I get
That
emails
too.
from people
Yeah.
who that
I mean,
happens to.
one more thing I want to ask you because it
Hmm.
touched me and it was personal. It's the caregiving from abroad for older parents. And I am lucky that we were able to keep our parents in the home and my sister was there. And I was abroad and was able to do what I could do online, like you say. Thank God I was able to do the finances. And then the pandemic came and you could do the Instacart and all of those things.
Yeah.
And I know you're going through it now and are able to be in the same
Hmm.
place. Any advice you have that you've learned for if you have to, because you said you can't imagine it, but what have you learned? And I can kind of say what I've learned. Like you say, have all those papers in my phone under my mother and my
That's right.
father's
Have it
contacts
digitally.
and the
That's
information.
right.
I have the social security number, all that stuff, because when you're doing that and they call you, and if you're fumbling around and don't have the information, you look
Hmm.
suspicious.
Right.
You can't
Right.
keep
Which we have
somebody on
to.
hold for 10 minutes. So that would be a tip, like to have a digital and a paper if you're overseas, if you're caregiving from long distance, if you are in a position like Lisa was able to do to like, repatriate a little bit and do that. But as someone who's gone through that and lost both parents, if you don't have any other kind of plan and you know you're going to stay in your host country for the rest of your life, and you
Hmm.
have living parents or older people that you care about, make that plan so when the time comes, if so moved or needed, you'll be able to financially leave what you're doing and go back to the States for that because that is the type of thing you don't want to have regrets about. So that's my
Right.
advice.
That's
And that
true.
does take some financial planning. Once my parents started getting to the point where I knew I would have to go, then I changed my financial goals where I said,
Mm,
okay, I have to earn this much because I used to
that's
go home
right. I
twice a
like
year.
that.
I used to go home twice a year. I said, okay, I have to go home four times a year, or I have to go home whatever. So then I changed my whole focus just for that, and so that wouldn't disrupt my other financial responsibilities. So I appreciate you because I'm bad about I'm like the budget, but then once you have a why, like okay, I have to be able to go, and then I
Right.
started
You're
getting to
why.
that category where you can't do those cheap flights. You need those refundable tickets. Because,
Right.
mommy may
It
go
all
down
adds
2 days
up.
before you think.
It all adds
So
up.
thank you for that. And if there are any other questions, but just oh, and that wheel of life. Whew,
Yes. Yeah. Because we've lived abroad for a long time. So
I was
that's
very
very
thrown.
real
Like,
for her.
I know I moved to overseas in my 40s and now I'm in my 60s. And so I've gone through that wheel of life. And so my parents seem vibrant and healthy. And
That's
then,
right.
over that
Then on the
time,
time you looked up.
so thank
That's
you for
right.
bringing that up. And I'm sending hugs to you for
Oh,
what
thank
you're
you.
experiencing now because I've been there. And thank you for coming even when life keeps going, for
No, no,
keeping your
what right.
commitment.
What the kids say, life keeps lifing. The only thing I would add to that quickly is and I think this is important for all of us. We all talk about, oh, we want to this is again sometimes in the US, now it's the trend. I want to age in place. And even when I got sick in China, I was like, I'm out of here, I'm leaving. That may not always be possible. The doctor was like, I'm not going to write a clearance for you to leave. You're going to have to stay here until you're well enough to get on a plane. We planned for my parents to age in place. My dad is on a ventilator. That's probably not going to happen. They're like, well, we could teach you to suction. Every time the machine goes off, I start screaming. So, you need to plan for all kind of contingencies in the home, and again, I want to retire in Thailand. How do they treat elderly people in Thailand? What if I go into a coma and I don't have any family? And those are the questions you need to ask. And then, like you did, fund them. Ask the questions and then find a way to fund them. So that was also key that I've found is very important. Sorry, Angela, if I've gone over time. Like I said, I could talk forever.
No. It's perfectly fine. You've made me very much aware that I am woefully ill prepared for almost everything.
Uh-oh.
Um, I'm not even kidding. You're even when you started with when you first come overseas,
Hmm.
woefully unprepared for everything.
Okay. Well, I hope I was
Definitely.
helpful.
No,
Okay.
very helpful. But I just realized how much I've relied on my luck to get me
Hmm.
through everything. I came to Germany with a very low amount of money.
Hmm. How long have you been in Germany? May I
25
ask?
years.
Oh my
25
goodness.
years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I
So
mean, I
like
made
Adrian,
it.
look. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But I understand what
But
you're
Angela
saying.
lived
Okay.
and worked in Africa before that as well. Did you have a plan when you moved um, to East Africa, Angela? You were in
Plan.
Ethiopia, weren't you?
Yeah, I
Did you?
no, Eritrea. Eritrea.
Eritrea.
A plan. Yeah, I had a plan, but it wasn't like a detailed one like this.
Right.
My God. Yeah, so I've just gotta, that's right,
No,
world.
the
I've
first
just
time.
gotta get my stuff together.
Yeah, the first time I moved
Too late.
overseas, I had, and it was London. I tried to do the low, soft, same language, but not really the same language, but the same language, right? So low curve. And grew up watching a lot of British TV. And I had, at that time, I was in the music industry, and I had gone over for business, and then said I'm going to go back and I want to live there. And had met. I found out at the time they were, um, I can think of the Swedish word, the man name. What do you call it? Temporary agencies, just for the music
Hmm.
industry. If you just, just for the music industry. Somebody gave me that tip. So I went there. They gave me, they said, okay, if you move over, we maybe will hire you. So I had like like a hint of a maybe of a promise. Child went home, told my mother I'm moving, had like 200, $300 in my pocket. My dad gave me like $1,000 check. I'm crying. I was like, okay, I'm buying first thing, round trip ticket. This don't
Yeah.
work out, round trip ticket. And I had been working in the music industry in the States, and somebody I knew, her sister was coming. Somehow I took over her apartment and she took over mine. Somehow, how things just fell into place. And I wanted to just say this because that shock you had, that monthly paycheck, I thought, how am I going to survive? And then this is how old I am. London, that's when you had to put the coins in the thing for the electricity in your apartment.
Oh
Did you have an
yes.
apartment
Oh
like that?
yes. Yes, I did.
So I counted out. I was like, okay, how much do I need for electricity? I had my travel pass. I have to get to work and a little bit of groceries. And then, like after, because it was only a 6 month experience, because I ended up getting a 6 month contract with Polygram, which is now universal. But you kind of get in the groove. And I thought, that first month, I thought, I'm going to die. I'm going to
Yep.
die. I'm going to run out of money. I was so afraid. So I just
Yeah.
made sure I had basics, transportation, a little bit of food, and electricity. And I don't think I did anything else just to see how it was going to go.
It's a hard
Because at the end of
adjustment.
the
That
day,
that one's
yeah, I had no
that's a
plan.
hard
I had,
adjustment.
I had done
Well,
no
even if you
cost
had
of
a
living
plan, I don't.
assessment.
I think for that one with the salary shift, that one's hard to. I can still remember being in my boss's office reading my employment contract, which we don't do in the U.S. Even though I've had employees in Asia and UK, so I know employment contracts. I know their monthly salary. But when you're sitting there and you have your money in your home country, but you don't have any money that you're earning in this country yet, and that was a whole story, right? And then you're reading it, and it's like, oh yeah, you'll be getting paid in another month. And in Shanghai, China, they're a little nonchalant about it. Why are they nonchalant about it? Everybody lives with their family, or even if you're married, you have six people. That's why I couldn't hiring people in Hong Kong was hard. Oh, they have family money. They could sit home for 3 months. They can sit home for 6 months while mommy and daddy takes care of them. right? They're not super independent like we are. Not saying it's a bad thing, but they don't have to go out and pay rent, right? So
It's
it's a very
cultural
different mindset
differences.
and a
Yeah, like in
different
southern,
mindset.
yeah, like in southern
Yeah.
Europe, I've learned that home ownership there is big, but a lot of families is multi-generational. Right in
Yes,
West
that's the
Africa, a
word.
lot of multi-generational families.
Hmm.
Americans, we're
Hmm.
the ones that like get out when you're 18, get out, be independent, go as
Well, we're
far
coming
away as you
back.
can,
We're coming back now, but
come
that's
back.
because we were forced to because of the pandemic and the economy and the financial crisis. We're coming back to that. That is big now, multi-generational. But would I have ever thought I would come back and live with my parents? Are you kidding? Like, that's like embarrassing, right?
Well,
Like,
Lisa, if I know you, and I think I would say yes because you came when they needed you. So I would say yes.
wow, that's
You know what
true.
I mean?
Yeah. But living with
You
your
came
parents
when they
has its
needed you.
challenges. So,
Girl, I've
yeah.
been there.
Oh,
So, but Angela,
there's a
did you have a
question.
question or any in the
There's a
chat?
question in the Q&A. How can we get the book that you mentioned, Lisa? Um,
Um, I'll leave that up to Angela. Once I create it, I'll send it to Angela. She can distribute it to you guys.
okay, well, I will send it in an email to everyone who RSVP'd for the meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in
Well,
between, I probably won't be, I'm sorry, be able to do it until the weekend. If you have anything you have a question about or you want to include, sorry, I didn't put it down here. Just send me something to info@livingaglobalLifestyle.com. I actually like emails. I'm not a huge social media fan. And I'll try reach out to me and or you can go on my website, which needs to be updated, but enjoying kind of the newsletter and just say, hey, I had this question, you didn't cover it. Do you have any information? And I can put it in the ebook.
okay, great,
Lisa,
great.
if you
Thank you.
have one last tip, are you still asking, not asking, but are you still tipping gold? Because you mentioned, like in your asset portfolio. And just really quickly, I was looking at those gold bars, but I still don't know. I'm walking around with a bar of gold. What am I going to do with it if I need
Well,
the
that's a really
money?
good question. You never buy any kind of asset without knowing how you're going to exchange it or something. Now, there's a bunch of plate. Well, I shouldn't say that. You can research where you can exchange it. But actually, I was supposed to go to Dubai in December and buy some gold. I prefer going overseas only because there's less of a middleman. In other country, in the like, you guys know New York City. Was it the diamond market? And there was several articles about people were going there. That's you're paying their overhead. I would go there to see how they're doing it and what they exchange and how they're weighing it. But I'm comfortable in Southeast Asia. I'm comfortable walking into a store in Vietnam, letting them weigh it. I could probably even the US go to Chinatown and see, hey, I've got some gold bars. Do you know the best place? I could probably do that. But you have to know you're going to exchange it and dispose it. That's very, very important. And for everybody, that's going to be different. Like, not everybody is comfortable like me in Southeast Asia. But I don't know. I haven't looked at the gold price recently. I thought JP Morgan said they thought it was going to go to 6,000 by the end of the year. What is it for? Now I'm not buying, I'm selling. I'm more interested in selling my silver. I sell what my silver bracelet is worth. So that's something now. You see how the market has shifted. That's something. And there are ads everywhere now for it. Every single place if you want to sell your jewelry. Whereas before, well, that's looked upon negatively. Places like Asia,
The
it's
the
not
ads are here in Sweden. The ads are here in
yeah.
Sweden too
Yeah.
for gold, to put your
Yeah.
gold in an
It's
envelope and sell it. And I
yeah,
always think
it's
it's the
not a
craziest thing because I'm like, to me, but I'm the type of person that's still fascinated that I could put a letter in the mailbox and it actually arrives at the destination. So I'm thinking, how am I going to put gold in the envelope? It's going to get to that person and they going to send me cash.
I
But
believe that in Sweden. The US, no. We didn't get our mail for two
okay.
weeks during the snowstorm. So yeah.
oh my
Okay.
God.
Any other
Well,
questions?
look, in
Yeah.
Sweden, where we are, we get mail on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And then that next week is Tuesday and Thursday. And I remember I was shocked. I was like, even in the States, mail comes on the weekend.
We
But
didn't get mail
so
for two
Angela, this is
weeks.
perfect. So, Angela, this is a perfect segue into request your ballot to be
Yeah,
sent
I
to
want to hear
you by
this.
Yeah,
email.
yeah, definitely.
Everybody can get their ballot sent to them by email, but you have to follow, but you have to ask for that. And then be
Yes.
sure to send it back the way your state says. Right,
That's
Angela?
right. That's right. Requested by to arrive at your to you at your email address. It's much easier. Get
Hmm.
it printed or print it out yourself and then send it back the easiest way if your state allows electronic returns of fax, email, or sometimes they have an upload portal. Please use that and only use postal mail unless you have no other option. That's what
And
there's
check
several
your
states.
spam. Right,
Yeah.
right. Check your spam because that ballot might come in your spam. Because a lot of people, how do you get my ballot? Checking, oh, it was there. So maybe even as soon, because if you go to votefromabroad.org and you'll just, it's a drop down menu, you'll put your state and then it just walks you through based on your address. Because I'm not from a state, I'm from DC, DC statehood. But people
Oh,
like
right.
Angela who vote in Ohio, she's in Princeton or district or whatever. So based on your postal code, right, your zip code, they'll funnel you through and you get all your information for your elections. And what is it, Angela? You can sign it electronically on your tablet,
Yeah, in
but
some
everybody
some
still has to
states
print it.
you can sign it electronically. Others you can't, but that it will tell you when you go through it what you have to do. It will give you all the information that you need. So just vote, request your ballot, and please just vote. We need
Yeah.
to win this election. We need to elect people who are going to be able to fight fascism, to stand up to the MAGA Republicans and their leader, um, whatever his name is. Um,
Yeah, and as this is for Women's History Month, please vote for women. When you
yes,
register to vote and when you request your ballot, make that a vote for women. I can't tell you what that means, but I don't think that means grab them by the whatever, and you know what I mean. So
yeah,
make your vote a vote for women. Make your ballot request in honor of a woman that you love. When as soon as that ballot comes back in email, send it immediately. Because as Angela said, if you have to send it by the mail, and Lisa said, who knows how
yeah,
long it could take? And based
yeah.
on your
It could
host
take a
country
long
plus the
time.
US.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
in
for
honor of
sure.
women, in honor of black women, in honor of everything that's right, make sure you register to vote and take somebody with you. Be like Harriet. Don't leave anybody behind.
That's right.
That's good.
So, thank you so much, Lisa, for joining
Not a
us
problem.
today. And I look forward to seeing your booklet because I clearly need a lot of help. So I'm going to read it and study it well. And I'm not even joking. So
Okay. Oh, somebody just let me know it's Cobra, right? I didn't read the
yeah, it's
comments. Sorry, I'm just
Cobra. Yeah.
I could not remember it. Cobra saved me, everybody. It definitely saved me when I got sick. So I'm a proponent of that as well. Like I said, I could talk for hours. I'm gonna go and create an amazing ebook. If, like I said,
So
if I
Lisa,
didn't
does
cover
that
anything,
mean that we
hmm?
can have you back at some time because you can talk for
Y-
hours? Does that mean we can invite you back
You can invite me
um
back
another
anytime.
time?
Yeah,
Thank you.
anytime.
Because we can
Anytime.
do deep
Thank you so
dives
much.
into different subjects, based
Yes,
on what people
yes.
say they need. We can do
Right.
deep dives. Thanks again.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of that I didn't talk about. So, absolutely. Thank you, everybody. I hope it was informative. I hope it was helpful. I hope everyone's getting their financial strategy and their plan together. And if you have any questions, you can email me. You can follow me on social media. You can go to my website and then sign up. I need to get better about. I have so much content. It's crazy. I have so much content. It's crazy. I need to hire somebody to help me push it out to people. So thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your day wherever you are, and
Yes,
we'll see you next time. Ciao.
absolutely. Thank you guys. Bye bye.
Bye.